Hey everybody, today we're going to be learning from Chapter 8, Lesson 3, Functions and Equations. So we've talked about functions and equations already. We had Lesson 1 and 2 were lessons that we did in class. And function is like a rule in math, okay? And we learned that in Lesson 2 when we learned about function rules. An equation is like a balanced scale. Both sides need to be equal, okay? So today we're going to be learning about how to graph some equations using function rules that we learned in Lesson 2. So let's begin. First we need to write down some vocabulary. So first vocabulary word is linear function. Okay, and some people say it linear or linear. I guess linear would make more sense. So a linear function is a graph whose graph is aligned and you'll see a straight line. Okay, so in our definition, we're going to write down that a linear function is a function whose graph is a line. And we've already practiced writing and graphing some of these linear functions. It really is just a straight line. Okay, so you're going to see some dots and it's all connected by one straight line. There's no curves. It doesn't shoot up or down. It's just a straight line. So with linear functions, we are going to start graphing them, and how to graph them we're going to talk about. So we need to talk about graphing linear functions. So when we're graphing linear functions, think of an ordered pair. So we need that ordered pair. Yesterday we talked about, just going to ignore the phone, so you ignore it too. So yesterday we talked a lot about inputs and outputs. Okay, and we have a table. We have our inputs and we have our outputs. Our inputs are the x values. Our outputs are the y values. Okay, so when we put them together from a table, they should look like an ordered pair. So you will have your x and your y. Okay. Your input is your x. And your output is your y. Okay. Now let's start graphing. So we are going to graph this equation, y equals 2x plus 1. Okay? So if you think about it, if we cover up the y and the equal sign, this 2x plus 1, it looks exactly like a rule, right? And we've been practicing writing rules from sequences or tables. And so when we add this y equals, this makes it an equation. It makes this rule an equation because we have both sides of the equation, and this is saying that y is equal to 2x plus 1, and 2x plus 1 is equal to y. Okay, so this is an equation. Now we are going to make a table for our equation. Okay, so here's our equation again, y equals 2x plus 1. We have our x and y table. This one is a vertical x and y table. We're going to do one later on where it's horizontal. So let's start writing some of our x values. So let's say we had the x value of 0. Okay, it's always a good place to start. So I'm going to input this value into the rule, also the equation. Okay, so 0 in for x, that means I'm multiplying 2 times 0, which is 0, plus 1. My y value, or my output, is just 1. I'm going to now put 1 into my equation. So 1 for x, that means 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. How about 2? And we're also going to go up to 3. So I'm going to place my input in for x. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And last one, 3. I'm going to place 3 in for x. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Okay, so this is a good list of numbers that we have now. So after we fill our table out and we have our table, we are going to make our ordered pairs. Okay, remember, an ordered pair looks like x, y. So here are my x's, here are my y's. 0 first, then 1. So I'm just looking straight across. So I did 0, 1, 1, 3, 2, 5, just making my ordered pairs. X goes first, then y. 3, 7. Now, before we start graphing, remember our x is going to go on the horizontal axis, and our y is going to go on the vertical axis. Okay, so here's my graph over here. In my graph, I'm going to make sure to put labels, okay? So I want to make sure I have all the numbers here. So this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, I can even go to 4, and this is my x-axis. I'm going to do the same to y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And this is my y-axis. Okay, now I can start plotting the points. 0, 1. So here's my 0. I'm plotting my x first. Then I'm going up for my y. 1 is right here. So I'm going to make a point right there. Next point, 1, 3. 1 is right here for the x, and I'm going to go up 3 for the y. 1, 2, 3, about right there. 2, 5 is in my next point, so 2 for the x is here, 5 is up here for the y, and 3, 7 is my last point. 3 is right here, go up to 7 for the y. Okay, so now I have my points. Now I need to connect it so I make my a linear line for my linear function. And there's my linear function, okay, and I just graphed it. So the first thing you have to do in graphing is to create a table. From the table, you're going to get your ordered pairs, and then from the ordered pairs, you're going to plot your points on the graph, okay? The next thing we're going to do, and this is the last thing, you're going to find the equation from a table. So here we were given the equation and we had a graph. Now we're going to be given the table and we need to be able to find the equation. Okay, so this time I'm going to draw it horizontal. and I have values in for my y, 2, 5, 8, and 11. So I need to build an equation from the function table. Okay? So I'm going to rewrite it here. So 0, 2, 1, 5, 2, 8, 3, 11. So we practiced this in lesson 2. Okay? First thing, I need to look at, when I'm finding my rule, I'm looking from the change in x to y, right? I'm looking, my rule goes from x to y. My input goes to my output. If I was looking at this type of table, it would go from side to side. So it would go input to output, input to output. But I will be going from input to output, and sometimes we have to look at the change in y to determine what our rule is, or to help us find it. So rule should be going down. So I'm going to look at the change in y real quick. So from 2 to 5, I notice I have to add 3. From 5 to 8, I need to add 3. And from 8 to 11, I need to add 3. This is a constant change, right? I'm constantly adding 3 to each of these numbers. It's a repeated addition. Repeated addition is also multiplication. So I could also say I'm multiplying, in my rule, 3 times x. Okay? So that means for every x value, I'm going to multiply it by 3. So 0 times 3 is 0. Okay? But I have 2. So I need to figure out what else is going on in my function. 1 times 3 is 3, but I have 5. So let me go back to 0. Well, 3 times 0 is 0, but if I add 2, I'll get 2 here. So maybe that'll work. Plus 2. So let me see, I have to make sure it works for every single one. If it doesn't work for every single input and output, then your rule is not correct. Okay, so 0 times 3 is 0, plus 2 is 2. I'm going to put 1 in for x. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. I'm going to put in 2 for x. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. I'm going to put in 3 for x. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11. So it looks like I found my rule. Okay, this is my rule. But I also need to remember I'm finding an equation. So my equation must have the y equals. Just like we have up here, y equals 2x plus 1. It makes it an equation when you put y equals. Okay, so my equation is y equals 3x plus 2. Okay, so today we learned how to graph an equation, make a table, find the ordered pairs, plot the ordered pairs, and then find the equation. We have our table from the function table. You need to find the rule, and then you can create the equation from the rule. Don't forget the y equals. Let me know if you have any questions on this lesson.